Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
And we are recording, thankful for that. It's been a busy, active morning for us, and we've done some intensive mantras and meditation. We also had a connection last night with our guides, which was a real big blessing. And, we got a lot we want to share. And honestly, I don't know where I'm going to put this. I'm getting, it's like trying to find where do we put what, because we cover so much. We really do. I mean, gosh, we cover so much. Most channels I don't think they cover all the type of stuff we do from all these different angles. And we really do. Now that we're getting a little more situated, we really do have to sit down and come into a parameter zone. So Evolutionary Energy Arts was started back in 2017, right when the week of the eclipse. And, it started out to be all about evolutionary energy arts like Qigong, yoga, meditation, mantras, breathwork, things like that. Because we're in a time of amazing spiritual and physical change. And physical, that's part of it. And, again, as time went on, it turned a little bit more into one of those CONS piracy theories channels, as well as earth changes and things along those lines. EEARTS was started because they demonized evolutionary, and we couldn't post anything on it. So, I had gotten the inkling from the guides to start a second channel. And lo and behold, I had started the second channel, and then they basically were constantly giving us strikes on evolutionary. So we started up EEARTS 2019, right before evolutionary got demonized. I saw a Twitter where somebody was saying that they posted a video of Bobby Jr., and he got immediately his channel demonetized because of that video. So it still happens, it still happens. And then we started Heart's Home because, there's a lot of people that are going through evolutionary changes, and they can't tolerate the news. They can't handle it. They don't want to handle it. They have their spirituality firmly in place. They have got themselves in a point where they're no longer really interested in following the chaos, and they want just the spiritual side of things. So we started Heart's Home for that. All about, and we're going to be very careful not to put anything in there that's going to get anybody's stomach nervous. We want to have a place where you can go, and it's going to be all high vibe stuff. So, again, we're going to be clarifying things in there, but there's a lot here. So, like, this video is going to be really encompassing so much that, it could kind of go on all those channels. But, here you see people, Stonehenge, summer solstice, sunrise celebrations. And as a youth, I remember going to sunrise service on Easter. He has risen. I remember, going to the beach, watching the sunrise, and, taking part. I've always been somebody that's been drawn to the spiritual side of things. Ever since I was, as little gets. I was a 5-year-old kid that was handing the 8-year-old kid that lived next door the Bible and Catholic missals and saying, read this to me, explain this to me again, at 5 years old.
And I was just a kid that was playing with dead people and dead animals and didn't realize that no one else could see them. I mean, they had names and they were very real to me. And it wasn't until I was much older asking my parents, where did my friends go? Where did these animals go? And they said, baby, there were no friends and there were no animals. But just as Mike is sitting next to me right now, they were there.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you have with Cindy and I are two unusual souls. We're not typical, but if you guys are listening to these channels, you're probably not typical either.
Right.
And yeah, we do get some people in to Evolutionary more than the other two channels, certainly, that are totally ingrained in the system, and they're happy ingrained in the system. They don't really want to wake up. They just want to, catch the news. What's happening? Is WW3 on the doorstep? Are we going to be attacked? Etc. Or they could be getting a little bit curious now with all this UFO talk and alien talk. So, they're peeking down the rabbit hole a little bit. And, again, awakening to the fact that everything that we've been given in this world, as far as belief systems, science, etc., it has all basically been to pull the wool over our eyes as to the true nature of our reality and the true nature of who we are. And so many things have been demonized, and you could probably inverse most things and get closer to the truth if you were to take everything and put it upside down and inside out. So it is summer solstice today. Now, summer solstice in the northern hemisphere and just the opposite in the southern. Earth orbits at an angle. Solstices happen twice a year at the points in the Earth's orbit where the tilt is the most pronounced. As we know, the Earth is not straight up. It's at a 23.5 degree angle. That does actually change slightly. This is also why we have a northern star now, but it's not always the same northern star. Again, this is not natural. I just want to point that out. What we have here on Earth with this wobble, with, the fact that the Earth does wobble, it's not natural. This is not how the Earth was created. And it's actually doing this because of the true controllers that control the control system on this planet.
Mm-hmm. Bringing things out of balance, with the moon. The moon is an object that does have control over our bodies and our minds, and it's been used to really kind of throw us out of balance. So that when we incarnate here on this earth, one of our jobs all throughout our whole life is going to be to find balance, and the energies and everything that they have given us to follow, the way we channel our energy is being harnessed so it can be utilized by those controllers for their systems. And it makes it really difficult for one to break away from the belief systems and find your own, because you feel safe when you think someone of authority that you care about, that you trust. I mean, they've given you this information and you respect them, so you believe it. But then you start hearing little whispers that, what you think is true might not be true. And no, we're not here alone on the earth. And this earth is made up of several different types of alien beings, species have come here to get us started in so many ways.
Yeah, again, this is uncovering the bigger picture. So you got to realize, too, that what we see, the visible spectrum, is tiny compared to all that is. And we are sharing our space with, and you can't even count the number of beings that exist in the same space as us. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. So the moon, the real moon, exists outside of our visible spectrum. It's basically what we would call lower fourth density. And so why do we see a moon if it's not something that's really in the visible spectrum? Again, it's holographic overlay. Now, there is a real object up there, but that object is not visible. It might be visible to some really, really gifted people, and it'll be visible to more and more people as time goes on, because our own frequencies are changing. So the visible light spectrum is just a small little part of the totality. And you do walk through beings, more than likely, every single day, and other beings walk through you every single day. That's just a fact. Again, I think probably the simplest, easiest analogy to understanding density is, a radio and having a knob. Turn it to the left, you go to a country channel. Turn it to the right, you go to a rap channel. Stay in the middle and you have classic rock. Again, they're all there. They're always there. What are you experiencing? Well, it depends on where you're tuning into.
And on what level is it tangible? We can hear it with our 2 ears, but you cannot see the data that goes through the ether, but it's definitely there. So we're dealing with layer upon layer of information that's like this. And a lot of people, if they have anxiety, this could actually be because they are channeling all these energies all at once, and it really can be difficult on the body. And that's why we talk about the spiritual practice, because you really can bring yourself into a place where you just find complete and utter peace. And then you have to diagnose, is the anxiety coming from that, or is it coming from trauma? And sometimes it's all of the above. And it's about picking things apart to figure them out and isolate them so you could learn how to deal with this. But a lot of people, I think, might be feeling nervous because they're rising up in vibration, and they're kind of having to deal with the technology head to head. And there's definitely not a handshake going on there between us and the AI, but a huge disagreement going on.
The very movement of our sun, like when we're talking about, and I said something that was really kind of stupid to Cindy. I said, see, the sun's way over here towards the north. And then when the winter comes, the sun's going to be way over there into the south. So the position of the house, we have to keep that in mind when we're planting things. But the reality is it's the earth, and it's not where the sun is. It's where the earth is in relation to the sun, because the earth moves in relation to the sun instead of the inverse. And so what we have right now in the northern hemisphere is we have our tilt so that we get the most direct sun. And it's just the inverse on the southern hemisphere. And then come around December 21st, the same thing happens in reverse. So today is the longest day. And, for us in the northern hemisphere, and we get the most light. And you could make so many different rituals up to take advantage of that and put intention out there. Because again, we are very, very powerful beings. And I don't think we've done enough to go into that side of it, what we can actually manifest. How can you manifest? How do you go about manifesting? Different techniques, different ways to work with elementals and things like that. So, again, for me, my journey studying this stuff started at 5 years old in this life, but that's just this life, because I've done this in other lives and have memories of other lives. And other people can, and many people do, more than you probably realize. You do get glimpses of past lives. And recently, some of the visions I had, which I was concerned about in this life, were really remembrances of past life, cataclysms and things that happened. Some of them are totally about what's in line for this particular go-round, such as, we've talked about the invasion of the U.S. and that Red Dawn scenario. But, one vision I had of so many different ships or something in the sky that you couldn't count, and it was just a terrifying vision, was actually a past life. And so, that's good, because, maybe we won't go that route in this particular life. But again, that knowledge that we are not alone is one that we should take to heart. So the moon is really there, but the moon is actually a fourth density object, and it is a natural object that was moved into place. And it is also affecting the earth in an unnatural way. And when we have the wobble that's going on, the planet Earth wobbles as it spins. Now scientists know why. You know why? Because humans are responsible for some of the wobble in the Earth's spin. Yeah, it's anthropogenic Climate change! Oh, they could take it and stick it where the sun don't shine.
I know, they're going to find every opportunity they possibly can to blame it on climate change. And I don't know how many science books have been, how many science books have been rewritten because they were trying to push an agenda. And this is really no different. It's getting so old. My gosh. They just keep carrying on. And unfortunately, people, if it's their first go around, they are going to look up to these people and they're going to listen to what they say and they're going to take it on as a belief system because maybe it resonates with them and they just don't know any better. But those of us who are waking up, who can see across that veil, I mean, we look at this stuff and it's like seeing through, very thin paper. You see right through it. You feel right through it.
Yeah, and we get, information that's the exact opposite from different sources out there that you guys could access to, and here I am gesturing as if you can see with my hands. Silly me. So this is from Live Science, which again, tied to NASA, never a straight answer. So, again, touching on the moon, no, we didn't go to the moon in those, videos that we see, those old, that again was all staged. It doesn't mean that we can't go to the moon or beings aren't always going around up there or beings aren't stationed there. Beings are stationed there. And again, we've shared that in Italian witchcraft, Stregoria, it's known that the Grigori, which literally translates to the Watchers, watch from the moon. Who are they? Well, they're referred to as the lords of karma. There are lords of karma. And then again, you also have the power structure that's in place, the dark draconian power grid, where they use those what we know as the Anunnaki and the Gigi. And again, I think one of the realizations is when we're talking about Anunnaki and the Gigi, we're not talking about one species. We're talking more of a category, a classification as to a certain subset of beings. Because, the Gigi, who were referred to as the lesser gods, the younger gods, and again, this is a word that's distorted. Is there a God as in the creator of this universe? Yes, and it is a magnificent being full of love, compassion, and just wants nothing but the best for everybody that is experiencing this experience of having a body and exploring in this universe, which is a positive matrix of sorts. That being is nothing vengeful, wrathful. It's nothing like the God of the Old Testament, not at all. In fact, the Gnostics knew that could not be the creator of this universe, so they basically gave it the designation the demiurge, which is like a false creator that is controlling this particular matrix on planet Earth, the dark control matrix. So there's a benevolent matrix and a dark matrix, and you get some people that, maybe they've had rough lives. The Gnostics did. They were persecuted. They were boiled alive. They were drawn and quartered. They were, slaughtered. And so I do have memory of 2 lives, at least, in which I was in that state. And the system took me out slowly, torturously. And I remember them. I've been able to tap in and remember because, again, Cindy and I, we do this time after time. We keep coming back and we keep, spilling the beans on the system. And there's many others like us that are constantly doing this, constantly pointing out, what is going on. And Yeshua, the real Yeshua, was another one that was pointing out that the system is the problem. As, he did some of what we get as his sayings are, still handed down and are accurate. Other ones are not so accurate. But again, truly, if he says to the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the religious authorities of that day, hey, your God is not my God, he was right. And that was a really accurate statement because the God of the system is not the creator of this universe. So now, it states right in the Bible, thou shalt have no other alien gods but me. Uh-huh.
Just that one alien. Just that one alien god. Only that one.
Yeah, exactly. So, the wobble itself is again unnatural. The seasons are unnatural. Whoa, that's a big statement. How can you prove that? Well, again, when you're up against the system that controls everything, if you want proof, you got to do your own spiritual work. Now, we're going to share with you what we've gotten, what we've discovered, what we know. Now, that's stuff that we know. But for you, if you are going to adapt that and take that for your own, then it's a belief system until you've actually experienced something that convinces you. This is the whole point behind gnosis with a G. It's knowing, it's experiential. There is something that you discover on your own. So no, we're not trying to convince people. We're just trying to wake people up, because people have blindly followed the science, blindly trusted in the academics, in the news, and in the politicians. What we're pointing out is, don't trust anything. Don't even trust us. Find out for yourself. That's the biggest thing. Do your own research, but even more importantly, do your own spiritual work. Dedicate the time to daily meditation, mantras, yoga, qigong, mind-body breath work, to totally unplugging, getting out in nature. And I was telling Cindy this morning, I said, I see whole days. I really want to do whole days from dawn to dusk, now that we're in a spot that I feel very at peace. It's like the sun rises, I'm starting meditation and mantras, and I'm going to stay out in the woods until the sun sets. Just meditation and mantras for the entirety of the day. And that's part of my plans. And for me, that's going to be easy because it just comes so natural, but that's past life work, which, again, it takes the work. And humans, unfortunately, are conditioned to just look for the quick out. That's part of the conditioning of this dark matrix, is that TikTok mentality. I don't have time for that. Well, okay, you come back and do it all over again, in another life and another life and another life. Or we could switch our priorities and start to ascend the ladder.
Mm-hmm. And, part of it is because of the education we receive. We're not given all of the information when it comes to what do you get for, when you're doing mantras, what do you get when you are able to quiet your mind? And really, you get a lot back. You're going to get your health back. You're going to, reminds me of, what do you get when you play a country song backwards? You get your house back, your dog back, get your wife back. That's a good one. But yeah, it's like a reward thing. If more people understood what you can receive from doing the meditation and the mantras, receiving your peace of mind, receiving that ability to tap into the etheric world to help guide you and bring you along. I think maybe people would have a different idea on it, but they're not really given the full picture of the reward system, what can be given. And because it is such a big picture and it's a slow process, people don't really stop to take the time to even learn and understand how beneficial these mantras and meditations are. But when you're ready and you realize that this world, the way you've been taught, is not working for you, then you do start to find time and you prioritize it, because you're tired of things not working out. You know that there's something different. You really have to want it. And when you want it and you try it and you start to get better, gosh, that's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. So we have the Milankovitch cycles and the Earth's wobble, an explainer on astronomical cycles and climate change. Oh, yes. So the Milankovitch cycles, it talks about the different reasons astronomical influences on Earth can have a dramatic effect on its climate. Variations in Earth's orbital features are some of the main drivers for ice ages in the past. In the early 1900s, Serbian geophysicist and astronomer Milutin Milankovic documented variations in the Earth's rotation over extensive periods, advancing our understanding of the planet's orbit because it's not a perfect circle, unfortunately. Using calculations made previously by Joseph Adhemar, Milankovic concluded that subtle variations in the planet's orbit over thousands of years could indeed produce noticeable fluctuations in the Earth's temperatures. In particular, he determined that slight variations in the Earth's orbit, tilt, and precession of the orbit were the main astronomical contributors to variations in Earth's climate. Yeah, absolutely. But here's the thing I want to get across to you guys is all this is not a very old thing. And here you have let me just go right on again. Earth's eccentricity describes variations in the elliptical Earth as it orbits the sun. The cycle is about 100,000 years long, over which Earth's orbit fluctuates from being very elliptical to an almost perfect circle. The Earth's eccentricity can significantly affect the weather here on the surface. For example, when the Earth's orbit is at its most elliptical, the planet experiences reduced sunlight over many thousands of years, resulting in significantly cooler Earth. This is particularly important for the northern icy regions of the planet, as a series of cold summers delay ice from melting, causing layers to build up, resulting in an ice age every 100,000 years or so. And then, of course, we have the tilt. And, what we have gotten is that this whole condition that we have with this planet is not millions of years old. It's not millions of years old. And in fact, we haven't been able to get it completely clarified, but it's either half or one full cycle in length. When we say that, we mean one full cycle of the yugas with what we have had gone on. As again, if you followed us from before, we've talked about the fact that two creations, the real story of Tiamat and the birth of Earth, the Earth was Tiamat. And that legend about the Battle of Tiamat, in which Tiamat is represented as a serpent or dragon type creature, and Marduk, who is represented as, a son of Enki, is really, again, Anunnaki. It's symbolic, truly, in inverse of the battle that did destroy Tiamat. And that still is in our DNA memory. And that's, from what Cindy has been able to gather, somewhere between 12, 13,000 and 26,000 years. And so, when we go through the cycle of the yugas, there's many things to take in. There's the natural aspects, and then there's the unnatural aspects of the yuga. The yugas are a natural part of the programming of this universe. And that is all about spiritual growth. It's all about cycles where it gets a lot harder. We are much more in the dark. It's kind of like we're blindfolded, and we got to go groping our way through, figuring things out when we're in a dark age. And, there are the beings that have taken advantage of that and have completely hijacked the normal programming. We're in a golden age. We really do understand so much more than we could even begin to comprehend right now. We understand how the universe works. We understand who we are. We live much, much longer lives than we do currently. Again, I encourage everybody to use this little search bar. There's so much. Evolutionary, because they wiped out probably 50% of the videos that we have put up on Evolutionary, has 1.2 thousand videos in its library right now. I know that was up closer to 3,000 before, and now EEARTS has 1.8 thousand videos, and Little Hearts Omen has hit 100 videos. Yay! But if you search through, we've covered so much of this before, and I do see a ton of people binge watching now, which is great. especially when we see the comments that, hey, I always had a feeling something like this, but I couldn't put it into words, or I couldn't get the clarity about sequences and things. And man, that feels so good when people, all of a sudden the light bulb clicks and they start to understand these nagging little things that always irritated them, that they couldn't quite figure out, but they knew something was wrong with what we are being told and what we are being sold, because we are being sold. And this is from NASA saying it's about the ocean, and it's all about, again, climate change is what it boils down to. And the climate is always changing. That's natural. So going back to the initial thing we were looking at, where everybody at Stonehenge, summer solstice celebrations, and you see, they're greeting the sun. This is something that was done all around the world, all different cultures, because we understood when we see the sun, and just think about the symbology, the sun of God. The Son of God is within all of us. Again, because Source is within all of us. And when we see the sun is a relay from Source and the creator of this universe to give us what? To bring us light. Light is what? Light is information. And just light coming in abundance is bringing us more information. It's information in abundance coming to us to enlighten us, to show us the way, through the darkest of the dark yugas. This is something very much to be celebrated. And what did we have with organized religion? Not all, but definitely the biggest power structures. It's all about obscuring the light and twisting and distorting things and making things, heresy to get out there. Oh, well, you're acting like a pagan. You're acting like a heathen. Heathen, again, those that gather around the hearth. Pagan, those that live out in the woods in harmony with nature. They make that a bad thing. Yeah, absolutely. They just kind of throw away the divine feminine and accentuate only the patriarchal side of things. And again, that's because the system that we have literally does come from Mars, and Mars is, the god of war for more than one reason.
And you hear a lot of people in the mainstream religion, they're always saying, oh, thank the Father for this and the Father for that. And you never hear anything about the mother. And that goes to kind of explain why we are so out of balance, because we're brought up just using the word Father. Oh, thank you, Father, for this dinner. Well, did the mother not go through the processes of preparing everything that's on your plate and bringing that into fruition so you could then feed your body, which is also made from the mother? None of that gets brought into consideration when you're at a prayer and a mainstream religious area. If you bring up the word mother, you're going to get looked at. If you say something like, oh, thank goddess, you're going to get in trouble if you're in one of these mainstream religious places where they do talk about tolerance and so on and so forth. There's tolerance as long as you are, coloring between their lines, and there doesn't seem to be any appreciation for any other understanding or even any other truth that our bodies, flesh, our blood, that what we put into our bodies, this is of the mother. This is what the mother brings to us. She sustains us. And the more we can mesh with the mother, the safer we're going to be wherever we go. So this brings everything really out of balance, because it starts with the thoughts. It starts in the head. It starts with the belief system. If they anchor that from a very young age, then they can pull people to their out of balanced ways and utilize them to, run their businesses for as long as they need, from cradle to grave. They just need warm bodies. As long as they're trained, it's good.
Humans are causing the earth to wobble. So again, everything they do is about creating guilt in us. And when you create guilt in somebody, there's a lot of terms for this. You know, the system gaslights.
Shame.
The system is narcissistic. The system is abusive. And again, that's the whole power structure that we find in this world. It's all about controlling. It's an abusive relationship, and it's not just abusive with us. It's abusive to everything on the planet. So yeah, absolutely, we need to change our ways. We absolutely should change our ways. And we can do a lot of good by going and looking at, well, how did these people in ancient times live? They lived in harmony with nature. So we look at Stonehenge and we think, wow, that's just amazing. You know, what a unique place that is. What a unique spot. Well, you know, there's ley lines all throughout the entirety of the earth. And these ley lines and these are places of high energy, high positive energy, where you can take advantage of that energy and you can utilize it to help heal yourself, to help heal the planet, to help heal friends, family, loved ones, also to raise your own frequencies up. Poverty Point, we've talked about this. Now they say 3,600-year-old World Heritage Site. What we get is this goes back to, really, we're talking about the Younger Dryas period. The Younger Dryas extinction event is what so many of these Neolithic sites are trying to point to. They're trying to point to the timing of when the Great Cataclysm came. They're also trying to point to give us clues to when the cycle of the yugas makes a major change. This is why we mark the solstices. This is also why we make note of these different cycles, because there are cataclysms that come and in these periodic timings. And, you know, again, there's a combination of the natural, but then the technological, because the earth wouldn't have a wobble if it wasn't for the great war that's gone on in more than just our density. So this site is amazing. And actually, it's one of 39 in this area as you're looking at northeastern Louisiana. And it's amazing also because they built this site relatively quickly, but it was augmented over time. It's far larger than Stonehenge. It's in fact, you could fit many Stonehenges inside this. As you could see it today, you could see the delineations. There are these mounds. Again, the Mississippian culture, the mound builder culture is something that's fascinating. And I've always known that this is a huge clue to exactly what's going on this planet. And they're trying to give us clues to timing. And here we are again at another key point in time when we are going out of a real dark age and we are walking into the light. So you could see these rows, and there are different mounds placed. It's really a fascinating site. As you see, it's along Louisiana 577. It looks kind of like, it reminds you a little bit of a gigantic Colosseum. Mm-hmm. Couldn't you see that? And then we have Mound A, Bird Mound, Mound B. Here you have Mound E, D, C. And, what was this about? This was, again, delineating key periods in time and remembering. They're trying to tell us, remember who you are. This is what they're trying to tell us. Again, they want to always make it so that, these things, okay, there's some significance, but it's not that ancient. It's not that important. They always try to make, again, certain humanoids to seem extremely more animalistic, not wise, and not full of knowledge. In many cases, much more advanced knowledge than we have now. So, this is a fascinating one. And this is not the only one, as you see some depictions here of Poverty Point. Interesting, too, here you see this person saying, mark stars to the right of the Pleiades that form the shape of a thunderbird. Again, what they're trying to tell us is that There is this great war that's gone on, and its origins are out there, but it has affected every one of us here.
And going back to that sign that you were looking at that explained back one more, it's just really funny how they word the 5-acre mound, 6 ridges, and 43-acre plaza present a design unique in the world. A 6th mound was added 1,800 years later. Tons of rock were imported from distant places for tools and ornaments. Now, how could they import things from such distant places? You know what I'm picking up when I read this, they imported things from outer space, from different planets to bring here, and it really gives these areas a very special vibe to them. This is what makes them so unique. This is what makes people feel so different when they go there, because they're actually experiencing extraplanetary energies.
Yeah, absolutely. And there were people living in this area from other planets, not from Earth. And, again, this was a free zone of exploration. So when we weren't in the dark age, before the totality of the takeover had happened, people could come from other planets, just plop on down and say, I'm going to hang here. If everybody else in the area is okay with that, I think we're going to settle here. And they did. And again, when we talk about Atlantis, it was an intergalactic society. I mean, interplanetary, people came and went all the time. It wasn't what we think. Not at all. No, they always want to paint us as being very, very backward. And in fact, there are numerous sites around the world, notably in Peru again, where and in Bolivia too, where the older you go, the farther back in time, the more advanced technology is directly evident.
I know. And, the different beings, the different places, all adds to the very, very unique energy that comes from these places. It's very curious, and these are energies that you can feel. It's like, I don't know if you've ever gone somewhere, you can feel something different. You might feel uplifted, you feel good, you cannot quite pinpoint it. Sometimes you might even be around different people, but I gotta say, it really sounds and feels like we're coming on to some type of full circle, because look what's in the news lately so much, about different beings that are out there, and they're admitting about different craft and things of that nature, when all along this was an open place to explore from different worlds. As long as you have the compatibility, you could come here. It was a very peaceful place to come and look and explore and experience.
Yes, absolutely. And again, they make it out, okay, Columbus discovered America. He didn't discover America. Are you kidding? What about the hundreds of millions of people that were already living in the Americas? They couldn't teach us a greater lie.
No, I mean, they more like they discovered Columbus lost is what happened.
Absolutely. And the thing is, in one of the impressions we've gotten, the deeper we've gone in, is that truly, if you're living in the U.S., if you're living in North America here, you might be living in some of the oldest, advanced settlements that there were. When I went out west, the first time I was really exploring out west, I kept getting hit with all these impressions of cataclysm and destruction and great wars. It was something that happened really not too long ago. Whole societies obliterated. I mean, weaponry that is spoken about in the Vedic books, that the Brahmastra, which sounds like the worst of today's modern NUKE weapons. So the Mississippian mound builder culture, again, the distortion when it comes to these dates. There are a lot of maps that show, and I have a book that I'm still reading amongst, probably 100 books that are going at the same time, that talks about, locations of giant bodies that were discovered in the states, every single state. Every single state. We dug up thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of bodies of giants. There's so many press clippings that are 100 years old and more in newspapers, and giant bodies unearthed, and they just matter of factly 8 foot 9 inches. This other one was 9 foot 6 inches. It's because of many factors. Yes, some extraterrestrials have been here that are bigger than us, but we ourselves are bigger also in other ages. And then when you get down to it, all of us have lineage out in the stars elsewhere. We are all of extraterrestrial lineage when you get down to it at some point or another.
Right. I mean, we're all very, very mixed beings, and sometimes okay, so let's use dogs for example. They have created dogs, and they've created breeds for specific things. Like for our dogs, Dobermans, they are watchdogs, but they are also like little Velcro dogs. They will not go anywhere, cannot go anywhere without us. They're like usually within 5 feet of us. But you know what? That's because they were bred to be protective, and that's the way they protect, is out of love, pure love. They are not vicious dogs in any way, shape, or form. But if you start throwing other breeds in there, like, maybe what are those herding dogs, then they might have the desire to go out and be a little bit further from you. So it can actually mix the signals. So many of us are made from so many different beings. We might find ourselves, wanting to do 50 different things at once when our DNA is starting to awaken. And really, there's not much you can do about that when you're going through an awakening. It's like you have to heed to these urges that you want to look at this, you want to explore that, you want to go here, you want to try that. That's because your DNA is coming online, and you are remembering all the different magnificent beings you have been, and it can be a chaotic time.
These different cultures, were they really savages? No. Did they war amongst each other? Well, we before this age, we were in the Bronze Age, and the Bronze Age is one in which the darkness is encroaching. So absolutely, there were a lot of wars, and there was constant warfare going on in the Bronze Age too. Not the same as what we have right now. It's just you will encounter beings that are territorial. Yeah. Again, when we get into the Silver Age, it's much different. It's much lighter. The Golden Age, the only beings that you encounter are really benevolent, beautiful beings of light, literally of light. So you look to Serpent Mound in Ohio, and it's a fascinating structure, and you can see where it is up here. The energy in this area is very, very interesting. Again, these areas that if you go through, the school history books, it makes you feel like there's just a few random people living here, living there, very tribal, very backward, don't have a clue about it. No, it wasn't the case. They were living in harmony, more in harmony than the Western world does now with nature. And yet, when you go back farther, you'll find that there are people that were, living before they were here. They were living in even more harmony. It's just a part of the yuga cycles, as we see Serpent Mound. And of course, the serpent it's symbolic of Kundalini energy. And you could see here up close a piece of that Serpent Mound in Ohio. And yeah, I could feel the giant's presence there in this Ohio area very, very strongly.
And, just think about this for a second. You can see that the grass is nice and clipped, and this helps you be able to see that mound. But what if it were covered over with trees and stuff? I can't tell you how many mounds there are in the United States. I think it is probably one of the... there's probably so much stuff that is here that they have kept covered up, and they've made it seem like the U.S. is like ho-hum, when it's probably, if you were to uncover everything, it would be one of the more magnificent areas to be. So it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it really is. And these things cycle. These things do cycle. When we go over to Turkey and we look at Çatalhöyük. It's one of the most interesting Neolithic sites that we find. They say it was inhabited about 9,000 years ago by up to 8,000 people who lived together in a large town. And, this is right here. I tell you, Anatolia is fascinating. Some have theorized that Noah's Ark came to rest on Mount Ararat, but then again, Noah's Ark was taken from Utnapishtim and the Sumerian legends before it. So there's really nothing that is original and unique in the Bible other than the twisting of things to the benefit of the system. It is, again, taken from many different sources, and it doesn't give you the whole picture at all. It's a distorted picture. But again, the Sumerian writings, which do tell of a flood, actually, just about every single culture on the planet talks about the flood. And what we're looking at is, yes, there are periodic local floods. Obviously, there is technology that has been in play, but there was also a major cataclysmic event that happened at the time of the Younger Dryas period. And that event was somewhere around 12 to 13,000 years ago. Half of a cycle of the yugas, so to speak. And that event was just disastrous. And it really did wipe out a vast majority of the beings on the planet. And what we have is, again, there are cities built on top of cities, built on top of cities, built on top of cities. As we keep going down farther into the earth, we're uncovering bigger and bigger structures that show, too, that people, some knew this destruction was coming, and some did go deep into the earth to survive it. Of course, we have, the legends of the ant people taking humans into the earth and then telling them when it was okay to reemerge. When you look to the Creek people, the Cherokee people, and really when you look to, it's pretty uniform when you look to Native American legends, creation legends. Most of the Native American creation legends are talking about coming out after the Younger Dryas period extinction event. That's their creation, event, because it's a recreation because of the destruction that happened at that particular time.
And there were a lot of mountains that were utilized for beings to go into. But, let's just take Noah's Ark, for example. It's a nice thought that it was like a real ocean ship and that it landed on, Ararat. But when you channel the energy of Noah's Ark, it wasn't a ship that about getting the animals 2 by 2 to bring all the animals. They didn't literally get the animals, but they got the DNA, because we're dealing with master geneticists. We're dealing with people who have the ability to recreate with just cells and not needing like the embryo and so on and so forth, but just a little bit of flesh from each animal. So that's what we have going on there.
Yeah, interesting. Here we see the bull horns here, and again, a lot of these ages correspond to, if we go farther back here, the age of Taurus, and then we have the age of Aries, and then we go into the Piscean age, and again, recognizing the Piscean age, and why is one of the symbols of Christianity the fish, because it's the Piscean age. And before that you have Aries, and you have the bull, and these are, again, it's all about the cycle of the yugas. It's all about the precession of the equinoxes. It's all about the destruction that happened again in the Younger Dryas. And you see, as we keep uncovering these different structures, it's just fascinating to see. Now, these people chose to live in harmony with the earth. And there's different technologies that I'm sure they saw people coming and going in spaceships. And yet they chose to live a simple, harmonious life, with the planet itself. Because that's part of this experience, this dense experience. And that whole side of things is omitted. Then when we look to Derinkuyu, and Derinkuyu is a spot that it's one of the complexes, again, in Turkey, and there are many of them that when you put them all together could house hundreds of thousands of people, stories, like up to 10 stories underground. With air ducts, and also with rolling stones that could be moved in from within the structure itself to keep other beings from coming in, because there was the wars of the gods occurring in the sky overhead. There were all sorts of extraterrestrial beings, and some things that looked pretty terrifying happening. So they wanted to escape what was going on the surface, and some did have advanced knowledge that there would be a major destructive event, and they'd have to, if they were to survive, go within the earth, or be taken up in ships.
Mm-hmm. I know. I mean, look at these. These are so advanced, and you're not going to tell me that somebody did it with a hammer and a chisel and, not so much as even a ruler. I mean, I look at this, it drives me crazy. And I know the answer, it's like, why don't we take this information and put it in, K through 12 and just see what questions little children have to ask, and if the adults have answers for them. And the honest truth is the kids will probably get reprimanded if they ask too many questions. Or, in so many ways, children are... They're molded so they don't ask the tough questions, or they give them answers before they ask the questions. But you kind of get past that in life when you realize, hey, this just isn't right. What's going on? So you start to ask those questions again. And I think it's a fair thing to do, and if you look at the geologists, people who look at the earth, the ones depending on who they're getting paid from, you get different answers.
Yeah, and this area in the Grand Canyon, which, as you could see, is way above the surface of the river and is an almost, a very dangerous climb, is marked off limits because, it hides things. What does it hide? Well, we hear stories of giants within. We hear stories of things that look like it's coming from Tibet. Buddhas and huge statues that you might find in Thailand and Tibet and India, and also things that look like they're straight from Egypt. How could that possibly be? Well, again, we went into the earth to survive, and the cultures that we see were global, just like today. Ancient Maya city discovered in Mexican jungle. Actually, they've been finding one city after another. Again, these cities are so buried. When you look to areas that have jungle, the jungle can just make it so you can't see anything very quickly with the way that things grow there. There were metropolises. There's ancient cities that have been discovered in the Amazon that at the time period that they were at their peak would have had far more people than London or Paris or Rome. Far more people. Again, this is all about that cycle. This is all about the cycle of the yugas. This is, again, why we have Stonehenge, all these megalithic sites. As you look, this is from Graham Hancock, fingerprint of a global cataclysm 12,800 years ago. Absolutely. And the Younger Dryas event, it's documented in the Sumerian records. They talk of, again, Enlil saying humans are too many. Yeah, we got to just start over. We'll send them a great cataclysm. There was impact points not just in Greenland that they've uncovered, but all over the Great Lakes area, down into the Carolinas. There was a major impact, and there was multiple smaller impacts that happened as well. And, it was devastating, absolutely devastating, because we were we were just coming through the ice age at that point. And then the impact and all the vaporization of this ice caused massive tsunami, massive flooding events, and it was terrifying, and it's still in our DNA to this day. as we see, new evidence that an extraterrestrial collision 12,800 years ago triggered an abrupt climate change for Earth. Yeah, always blaming climate change on humans when it has an extraterrestrial origin. Absolutely. There was a time when the moon did not exist in the sky, according to many ancient accounts. And we've talked about this too. You could find many accounts and they talk about it. And there's even a term for those that remember, proselenes. Those are those that remember before the moon was put in place. And, you have a tribe in Africa saying that the moon was put in place by two brothers that were always fighting. Sounds a lot like Enlil and Enki, doesn't it? Yeah, again, this is all part of the bigger picture, and it's part of the cycle of the yugas. And we are thankfully moving out of the darkest of these ages. Lifespan and heights of humans in different yugas, we've talked about this before. Because again, when we're talking about the Satya Yuga and the Golden Age, if we look to the Greek sources, it was a time before the time of Zeus. Who are the Greek gods? Because they're also going to try to tell you that Osiris and Enki might be the same person, but no, they're not the same person. When we look to these Greek gods are part of the control grid. They are again the Anunnaki offspring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they hold a lot of control, and they did help to put the current control system in place, but we're all definitely starting to feel that and grow out of it.
And listen to this. The Golden Age was a time before Zeus. His father Kronos literally time, reigned over the Golden Age when men lived among the gods. And there were no rules because everybody did the right thing. That's the Satya Yuga. That's the Golden Age. It was always spring because the moon wasn't in its place and the cataclysm did not happen yet. The earth was not tilted. The earth was upright on its axis, and we lived in an eternal spring. When you look to, the Bible, and, because of the transgression of knowledge, eating of the apple, we were banned from the garden. They're always looking for the Garden of Eden. Well, the garden, that perfect, heaven on earth, that happened and existed before the earth was knocked off its normal axis. And it was always spring. We didn't have the earthquakes like we do now. We didn't have the storms like we do now. We didn't have all this chaos. Peace and harmony prevailed. Humans did not have to work to feed themselves. No, there was food in abundance all around us. And they lived to a very old age, but with a youthful appearance, and they eventually died peacefully as if falling asleep, which basically some Buddhist monks and yogis can do now when they feel it's time. They simply go into a meditative state and their spirit exits the body peacefully. This was the norm. Their spirits are said to live on as guardians of the mortals. Spirits, spirit guides, natural guides. Silver Age, Zeus overthrew his father Kronos, ruled over the Silver Age and subsequent ages. Now that's the takeover of the Anunnakian draconian system. Zeus created the silver race of man to be inferior in appearance and wisdom to the last. And that's what's happening to Homo sapiens now, because Homo sapiens came about because Denisovans and Neanderthals were, too in tune with the earth, too in tune with nature, had functioning pineal glands. So you have to make another version that doesn't have those type of capabilities that keep them from being perfect slaves. And now, they're going to create a new version and Homo sapiens will go away. But some Homo sapiens are going to go back upwards and start to regain that which was long lost. And man had to grow his own food, seek shelter, but still their childhoods were long and they could play for 100 years before growing up. They lived only a short time as grown adults, spent most of their time in strife with one another due to their childish foolishness. Zeus destroyed this race for refusing to worship the gods. In other words, for refusing to be slaves. They were basically killed by the Draconian, Anunnakian, Aegian AI control grid. Nevertheless, the Silver Race became the blessed spirits of the underworld. And then in the Bronze Age, Zeus created the first recognizable human, bronze race from the hardwood of ash trees. War and violence was the purpose and passion of the Bronze Race. An odd detail about this race was they did not eat bread. Hesiod didn't say why. Their weapons, tools, and even their homes were forged of bronze. This race of men was destroyed by Zeus with a great flood. So that's, again, the Younger Dryas event. And it goes on to the heroic age, and that talks about the demigods and the hybrids, and then the Iron Age, which, again, is the Dark Age, the Kali Yuga. During the Hindu Golden Age, people are said to be over 30 feet tall. They're totally virtuous and wise, and their lifespan are hundreds of thousands of years. With each succeeding age, both the people and the earthly environment becomes increasingly corrupt and less beautiful, and the lifespans and the statures are shortened. Yeah, so, this has everything right there. It's all right in front of our faces. As you see this happy dog, this little guy, he just, find ways to play, have fun. He could just walk straight, but he wants to, have a little fun and spice it up, and we should too.
I know. Who doesn't like to make sure you touch every single square on the trail?
Absolutely. Again, we are on the ascending path. Does that mean that we are going to experience the golden age right away? No, but we are escaping the dark age, and we are able to have the choice to step out of that system if we so choose. The system is banking that we will be lazy, at least enough of them. There's going to be enough people to carry on with their energetic needs and their needs for labor, as they've given us their monuments, their stone guides. When we think about Georgia and the blowing up of that one, it does seem like that triggered some sort of other things in motion. So again, happy solstice, guys. This is again a demarcation time. We are making note of the most light. This is the day when the most light is hitting us. But we look forward to a day in which true balance is restored.
Indeed.
As always, thank you for your support on Patreon and Ko-Fi. We couldn't do it without you guys. Do check out evolutionaryenergyarts.com. And if you need to make an appointment, it's evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com for spiritual coaching, ascension help, energy work, Vedic charts, and the like. Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.